Hi, I'm Peter J. Ray. Welcome to Adventures in History. Today's topic is dealing with hardships. You know, as we go through life, hardships come into our lives in various forms, severe health problems, or sometimes minor health problems, financial difficulties, problems in our relationships, death, people who die, who you might love someone and they die suddenly, and all these different things. If you study history, oh my gosh, it's unbelievable the hardships that people have lived through. And, you know, the Holocaust and all those people who died a tough death and lost everything. The Gulag Archipelago, slavery, people have been slaves. Oh, it's just, we don't even want to think about it because it scares us. And actually, if you go into a nursing home in the United States and see how people are living, at the end of maybe for years in wheelchairs or bedridden or so forth. Now, the thing is, the question is how to deal with hardships. And the thing is, yeah, I mean, I guess being sad is maybe part of it. But I don't think we should be miserable for a very long time. And I have a strong belief that we can be happy regardless of hardships. And the question is, how do we deal with these hardships? So I wanted to talk about my own life, my own experiences. We all have had hardships. I was born in 1960 and grew up in Rocky River, Ohio, in the Cleveland area in the United States, Cleveland, Ohio. And I was the fourth and last child of John and Ruth Ray. So there were 6 of us, and my parents were good people. They were very hardworking, and they both believed in education, and they both were good students. And you know, they were really believed in achievement, you know, and work, accomplishment, getting things done. Good people. And they were kind, and they were very service oriented. And they were kind people. And I received a lot of love as a child. And you know, that was important, very important. But the thing is, you know, this world in life, you know, things, hardships come. And I remember as a boy being kind of intimidated by other kids after school, you know, in the playground. And so, and television, this is the 1960s, television was around. And, you know, I believe, I'm in a church, I'll talk a lot about that, my church, Self-Realization Fellowship, and we believe in reincarnation, that we've lived before. So, anyway, as a young boy, I got interested, I became a television addict. And I think, and the question is, why did I do it? Watched too much TV. It wasn't healthy. It wasn't good. But I was and I think it was because of fear. I was kind of scared of other kids, and it was sort of a safe activity. You're watching television, but it was unhealthy. And so I guess from a past life, you know, lack of courage. You know, courage is an important virtue. And then so that was a mistake, I believe, that I made based on my problems in my character. And then the other thing is, I remember looking in the mirror. You know, especially when you're a boy or any age, your image is important. And I wanted to look tough, wanted to look strong. And I found when I looked in the mirror, if I sort of bend over, it made me look tougher. At least that's what I thought. So I developed bad posture. Another big mistake. And so, you know, because I think it's important to have good posture. Up till now, I still have bad posture. I've been struggling with that ever since, trying to have good posture. So anyway, the years passed. I was a good student in school, and we had a very nice family. I think good family life. And then, I was a good student and so forth. And then. When I was almost 11 years old, our family, my father, he worked hard, very good provider. We started going to the Bahamas every year in the spring, like in March into April. We started going to the Bahamas from the time I was 5, flying to the Bahamas for vacation. And in 1971, on one of those trips to the Bahamas, we were staying on this island, Cistern Key, in the Exumas of the Bahamas. And my older sister Pamela got sick. And she was only sick for a short time. And then it was very tragic. She died. She was close to being 16. couple months short of 16, or I'm sorry, 17, junior in high school. And we couldn't get off the island. Yeah, we used to arrive by a seaplane. She needed to get to a hospital. And she only got really sick, though, the night before she died. And then they couldn't get, apparently the seaplanes didn't fly at night. And she died the next morning, Easter. Anyway, so, death is a reality, untimely death. People die at different times. Some babies die even in the womb, or very, so you never know when people are going to die. That's one of the tough realities of life that we all have to deal with, the fact that people can die. Anyway, so this happened, and she was a wonderful person, my sister Pamela. Very kind and lively and outgoing, and really such an important person in our family. Among the children, probably the most important, among us four, because of her spirit, wonderful spirit. She was a very good student, and she had self-deprecating humor. She could make jokes at her own expense. Yeah, and she was ambitious, good student. Anyway, so she was gone, and so this was a big loss for our family, and sort of a big hole. And my parents naturally were devastated. They were good people, and my father, especially, he really loved her, and both my parents did. So this was tough, very, very tough for them. For them that was an incredible hardship that they had to live with for the rest of their lives. The death of their daughter, that was always this pain that they carried with them. But I have to give them credit. I think they dealt well with it, because they became better people. And they became more spiritual, and they realized, that there was a lot of suffering in the world, and they started looking for other people to who were hurting, who had experienced tragedy and loss, and so they would reach out to those people. Now, for myself, I was not really affected by it very much. I was still at the time, but then when I was 13 in 1973, actually in the fall of '72, I started junior high, and then I developed depression. At that time, from junior high, age 12, 13, around that time. And I was intimidated in junior high by the situation. In Rocky River, we had like 5 elementary schools, and then they were all funneled into the junior high. So all of a sudden, with all these kids together, it was like I thought it was kind of like a madhouse, all these kids. And we're all at the elementary school. It's kindergarten through 6, so it's a nice community. And then all of a sudden, your grade in high school, junior high, 7 and 8, just those 2 ages, and then plus all these kids you've never seen before. And it seemed like all of a sudden classes got tougher and grades were more important, and then sports became more important. And I just couldn't deal with the situation, and the boy-girl stuff. And so I developed depression, and although I continued to be a good student, and I became a diehard Cleveland sports fan, which was kind of actually a mistake, I'd have to say, because I wasn't living my life, doing things. I was sort of living through Cleveland teams, which was, anyway, that's another thing that I did, because I was kind of intimidated by, sports, and I was not a good athlete. So anyway, I was living my life, and then as time passed, by the time I got to be senior in high school, I was sort of fed up with everything, and I'd been depressed and kind of good student but shy, not very outgoing. So I made a conscious decision to get into start drinking and taking drugs, pretty much just marijuana. And I did that for the next 8 years, or about for the next number of years. And I thought it was, really a good thing I was doing, and it's very pathetic. I had fun getting drunk, getting high, but, it was obviously not the right thing to do, but it's what I did. And I carried that and throughout into college, drinking and getting high. And anyway, after college in 1982, I was depressed again and couldn't. In fact, I couldn't. My senior year of college, I was smoking marijuana every day from the time I got up in the morning all day. I was high starting. After college, I came home 1982, and I couldn't find a marijuana supplier. I was depressed, and then I went to San Francisco for a while. I was in the Bahamas for a while, and then it really got crazy, and I was like, I was back home by 1983, like the spring of '83. I was living with my parents, and I was really became like a mean person, you could say. I was mean. I was mean to my parents, and I was difficult, and I was angry, and they were shocked. They didn't know what to do. Oh my God, their son. I was a disturbed young man, definitely, and. So they put me in the hospital, and then eventually I found my way to Alcoholics Anonymous, and I started going to AA meetings, and so I wasn't drinking, I wasn't getting high, but I was still very depressed throughout into the rest of the 1983. I had started working, and then into 1984, my older brother Mark, he introduced me to Self-Realization Fellowship, and I said, well, okay, I'll give it a shot. This was the church he was in. It's yoga meditation and how to live teaching. Started by PARAMAHANSA Yogananda. His picture's back here on the far left. And anyway, I had a tremendous experience. I started meditating just a little for a few days, and I was healed of this depression. I was healed. It was a miracle. It was tremendous. And I thought, oh my God, I've been walking around, like in this gloom with, I was just a dead man, basically a dead man. And then all of a sudden I was alive, and I was looking at the sky and the birds, and I was enjoying life. It's just incredible. Now, what I didn't know is there was trouble ahead, because I had, we all have problems in our character. And that's certainly true for me. We're all a mixed bag. We were created by God, which means we're perfect, but we have these things we have the ego, and we have problems in our character that obscure the greatness that's inside of us as creatures or creations of God. Anyway, so I started to become arrogant and sort of combative. I've developed a big ego and pride, and I thought I was a great guy and everything, and next thing you know, I was drinking, and next thing you know, I was my parents. I was having conflict with my parents, especially with my mother, and so this was ultimately for the next year and a half. It's a very terrible time in my life where I was confined, and I was in a series of hospitals, mental hospitals, and for a year and a half, and. Yeah, and even there, I was still misbehaving. I thought I was such a great guy. I could talk. I was personable, but it was, I was a big ego, and I was sort of in conflict a lot with people. I wasn't peaceful. I was, sort of combative and difficult, and sort of arguing with people. And so anyway, I did that I went on, and it was a very bad situation. And finally, but at any rate, I was supposed to go to the Ohio State Mental Hospital, and then because there was no place for me to go. It's kind of like a prison, apparently. And my dear mother, my dad, was so fed up with me because I'd been, really terrible, really mistreated them. It really was a very terrible thing. Treated them very terribly, and then. He said, "You're never living at home again. You're never going to live here again. It's just not going to do it." And then my mom, she said, "John, let's give him one more chance," because she thought, "Oh my God, he's going to die in this Ohio State Mental Hospital." So, and that was the fall of 1985, and my dad said he's a nice guy, and he agreed, although probably with misgivings. So I came home in the fall of '85. And actually, that whole experience of being locked up and losing my freedom was ultimately for the best, and I really see it. And all of a sudden, so anyway, I was home, and I had freedom again, at least, So I thought, wow, I was happy. I was actually very happy, and I was going to AA meetings, and I went to a day program. Eventually, started working again. And for the next several years, I eventually got a job in my dad's office. And there were some times I lived with my parents for the next 4 years, lived at home. And I was kind of, I started, my life was moving forward. I was meditating. I was in SRF, practicing yoga meditation. And, there were some bumpy times, but I went back to school and got my teaching license to teach high school history, And I was a student teacher in 1989, and then I actually got my first teaching job in the fall of '89 in Gstaad, Switzerland, and then taught there for 2 years. Summer of '90, I went to the Philippines. I visited a lady friend, a pen pal, wonderful person named Alice Garcia, and we decided to get married. And it was a wonderful blessing that came into my life, because she's such a good person. My wife Alice, we've been married since 1991. And she's very kind and patient and puts up with me. And she's very easy to be with, and has a calm demeanor. Good person. So I moved to the Philippines in 1991 and started teaching with her at this Red Celeste Educational Center. I taught for like more than 20 years. And a high school in, it was in Quezon City, Metro Manila, San Juan, Barangay, New Manila, Quezon City, then later in San Juan, Metro Manila, and so I taught high school history, and then I really started having I had some real hard times in the Philippines. We had a son who was born, a wonderful person. Our son Tim was born in 1993, and he's now helping me make these videos, and and so the thing is, in the Philippines, I had some tough times because the conditions in the Philippines, in Manila, is really traffic and hot, and I was kind of lonely and everything. And so I had my problems over the years, and kind of angry, and I was a difficult husband, not a great husband really, because I was kind of angry about my life. But and sometimes and I was too hard on the students. But I remember and I tended to neglect meditation and kind of get in trouble. And remember I went to Guam for a year because I was fed up with living in Manila, but things didn't work out because I had trouble in Guam. Came back to the Philippines, and then I remember when Cleveland Indians lost the 1997 World Series. I was so miserable I was really miserable. But I thought every time I've, over the years since I've been in SRF and Self-Realization Fellowship, every time my life would become very hard, then I think, okay, I've got to meditate more. I have a spiritual path that's very powerful, and I have to follow this path, and then my life would become much better. See, the thing is, the spiritual path, we have to put time into it. We have to, whatever our path is, we have to spend time in studying, these holy words from wise people, from wise men, from saints, and in my case, the SRF, Self-Realization Fellowship teachings and books and so forth. And we have to spend time in prayer and meditation. We have to put time into it, and we also need to love God every moment instead of thinking about a million things. Even though we do have to do things. Anyway, so time passed, and I was, like I said, we're all a mixture. And back in 2008, I ended up moving to Marion, Ohio with my son. It didn't work out, and went back to the Philippines. And I thought, oh boy, 2009, I thought I need to meditate more. I have to, because I was continuing to have problems, be kind of a troubled person. So I did. I meditated a lot in 2009, and I became, things got better. I felt a lot better. I felt like I was a better teacher. I remember thinking, I was a husband and a father and a teacher, and I thought, I need to be a better person. And, but, we're living our lives. I was, married, and I had a son, and I was teaching, and I was doing my best. But the thing I love about Self-Realization Fellowship is it has the tremendous power, or any spiritual path, to help you change, to become a better person. When we become a better people, and when our character improves, then we are better at everything, in all our relationships and in our work. So as I was saying, 2009, I meditated a lot, and I was doing. Into 2010, I was doing real well, and I felt like I was doing well as a teacher. I felt very strong and intelligent and creative, and able to be effective in my life. But again, problems in my character. Excuse me. I became arrogant, and I became combative. I started being in conflict with other people. And pride. I developed pride, and I got involved in Philippine politics in a big way. I became obsessed with that, which, you know, I wasn't living right. I wasn't doing what I needed to do, which was, you know, be a good teacher, a good history teacher, and follow the SRF path. So anyway, that lasted for a year and a half, sort of living a crazy lifestyle where I thought I was obsessed with Philippine politics, and I thought I had this important role to play. Big ego. And the 2010 election was pretty, I thought, exciting. You know, Noynoy Aquino won, and Gloria Macapagal-Arroyo was sort of a semi-dictator. Anyway, I found it very, very compelling. And anyway, after a year and a half of that, into 2011, July, it was crash and burn, because I came home, my father was dying, came home, and I fell into a severe depression, and my father did die, and I couldn't really help him. That was unfortunate. Yeah, I felt real bad about it. In fact, the last thing I said to my dad is, "I'll see you tomorrow," and I didn't see him. I never saw him again, because I flew back to Manila when I changed my mind. Anyway, so the next 2 years were like the worst years of my life, and I'd been in SRF all these years, and I'd been meditating and so forth. 2 years of severe depression. It was very hard for my wife and son. I know, because our son Tim called me a blob of negativity, because I was just unbelievably a horrible time. And just being awake was hard. The only relief I had was sleep, and, you know, eating a little bit, or maybe movies helped a little bit. And eventually I stopped teaching. I just watched TV, and it was just a nightmare. Like I said, I'm sure for my wife and son, very terrible for them. But for me, you know, it was just I had no hope. I felt I was a damned soul, and it was a severe depression. It was severe depression, and I wanted to die, and it was just nothing. It was like the year 2012 was like a big 0 year from the January 1st to December 31st. Nothing. Anyway, that was tough, and I'm sure it was karmic, you know, from a past life, bad karma that I believe. That's my belief, is that I was burning bad karma from a past life, because I don't think that I had done anything that terrible to deserve that. Anyway, I got through that 2 years, and then the greatest miracle of my life came in July of 2013, and excuse me. And I remember one day thinking, you know, I had studied my spiritual path, or the teachings, so something stayed in my mind, and I remember praying to God, and I said, "You're God, you can do anything, you can heal me." And I said that, sort of a prayer. The following day, I decided, the thought came to my mind, I'm sure it was divinely inspired, why don't you try meditating again? I hadn't been meditating. I'd stopped for a long time ago. And I said, why don't you try meditating? You're not doing anything anyway. Meditate on and off all day. You know, just meditate for a short time. I couldn't meditate for a long time. Meditate a little bit, take a break, meditate again. So I did that. I said, okay, I decided to do that. And after a week of that, I was actually, there was a miracle happening. I had a sense that something really good was happening. I was sick of being indoors. I had not been going outside. I was so tired of having a ceiling over my head. You know, I wanted to go out, but I didn't want to see anyone. And I knew a lot of people there. And I made a lot of friends, and I wanted to go out, and so I thought, oh, let me go out at 4 in the morning and take a walk. So I did. I went out and took a walk at 4 in the morning. The thing is, I did run into some people I knew, security guards over by this Green Hills West subdivision. And they're like, "Oh, Mr. Peter," and so I talked with them for a little bit. And then, you know, during this depression, it was very, very tough, painful just to be with people. I hated being with anyone, really, and very, very uncomfortable. And then but during this time, I was talking to these fellows, a couple guys, and I thought, oh, that was enjoyable. And then when I came home, it hit me that I was cured. This depression was cured, and it was the greatest miracle of my life. Unbelievable. And it shows, you know, and that was the most dramatic. I've had this depression on and off, and I've been healed. Problem is, after healings would come, I'd get in trouble again. I would misbehave, which would lead to another depression. But I know, God's power. I know, based on these miraculous healings. Anyway, so that was July of 2013, and then my mother was in an assisted living place. She was having a very tough time, and my sister Patricia had wanted me to come help her because she was alone. My brother Mark had been there, but he had left, and then I had not been willing because I didn't really have the ability. And then I communicated with her and I said, yeah, I can go. And so I did. I came and I moved back to America in August of 2013 to take care of my mother. And I've been back in the United States since then. And I took care of her for about a year and 10 months. I had a wonderful time. It's right over here across the street, the Normandy Apartments in Rocky River. Took care of her, and it was wonderful and it was so satisfying because I had always been the bad son. And because we were in conflict a lot. But my mother had suffered. She lost her husband, she lost her home, and she was in this tough situation. She was very depressed. And she was so, we just got along fine. We had a little trouble, but basically she was very receptive to me. And, for much of my life, I've really believed that kindness is the most important thing in life, and to be kind. And my mother often, she couldn't, she had her own problems, but good person. But anyway, so we had this very loving relationship. And so finally, I guess she considered me a good son after all these years where I was the bad son. And anyway, so that was wonderful, very satisfying to have that experience. And she's my mom, and she loved me a lot. We owe a debt to our parents. She was a good mother, a loving mother, and I took care of her at the end of her life for the last 14 months. And then she died in October of 2014. And then, since then, I've been doing different things. I spent 2015, I studied American history, spent a lot of time doing that. And then 2016, I went back to school and got my teaching license renewed. Didn't get a teaching job, wasn't able to get a teaching job, high school history. But then I was a substitute teacher into 2017. I've been interested in working with the elderly. I got a license to be a nurse assistant, or like basically an aide, and I worked for 6 months in a nursing home in Rocky River with the elderly. Very, very tough. Like I said, talking about hardships these people are going through, and I found that a severe hardship, and I quit that job. I thought, oh, this is just so tough, and I think it wasn't right for me. I mean, I'm glad I did it, and boy, there's a tremendous need among the elderly, and these nurses' aide positions don't pay much. And the work is tough, and it's heartbreaking. And that's why I quit that job late in 2017. And then I started making YouTube videos. Ever since my son moved here, shortly after that, we've been making YouTube videos, and I haven't made money to speak of, but I felt good about the work we've been doing. These more than 600 videos. And so anyway, I feel real good about my life. I'm 59. I'll be 60 coming up in May, and I feel good about everything. And I have to say that the most important thing in my life has been Self-Realization Fellowship, or SRF, and because it's just everything to me. And to me, the topic we introduced was dealing with hardships, and I think when hardships come or hard times come, we need help. And very often we should try to help each other. Oftentimes people can't help because they just don't have the ability. But God's help is unlimited. God is this source of everything good, of power, strength, energy, wisdom, love, and so forth. And if we can connect ourselves, we need to connect ourselves to God, and through prayer and meditation and spiritual study of the wisdom of great saints. And if we do have a strong connection, then I believe that we can deal with hardships, not be destroyed by them, and maybe be a little bit sad, but generally be happy people, or even if whatever happens to us. And I think the most important thing in life is for people to find the spiritual path that's meant for them. And I'm not saying that SRF is for everybody; it's for me. But the thing is to find a spiritual path. I think the Mormons are a good church, and my wife's a strong Catholic, and that's good for her. And other people, there's the Jehovah's Witnesses, all these different. There are many spiritual paths, but to find your spiritual path and stick with it, and be dedicated to it. And if we do that, I think we'll be okay when hardships come, and we'll be able to do what we need to do, and cope and make the best of it and be happy. That's why I love being in the Philippines with Filipinos, because they have a tragic history, but they're wonderful people, because they know how to. They're very spiritual people, and they're patient, and they have these wonderful qualities, and they laugh at trouble. Wonderful people. So that's what my belief is, that to deal with hardships, because the thing we don't seem to understand in life is that our problems are caused by our character, defects of character. In Alcoholics Anonymous, they talk about that a lot. In AA, we have to be aware of our defects of character and work on that. And that's the source of our trouble in life. We often don't understand the real causes of our trouble. We think, oh, it's because we blame, blaming other people, and we don't want to look in the mirror and face ourselves, that we are the cause of our problems. Like they say, we are our best friends and worst enemies. And let's say you become aware you have problems in your character. The question is, how do you change? Like the book, The Power of Positive Thinking. Yes, I think it's easy to understand that if we can have positive thinking, that's going to be a good thing for us. But how do we do it? And I think it comes through God contact. If we have contact with God, a strong relationship with God, then we'll be able to deal with whatever the challenge is, whether it's problems with health, financial problems, relationship problems, if untimely death comes, whatever it is we're dealing with. And then we can be happy and cope and help other people. Now, this coronavirus pandemic that's coming, one of the good things about it is it's happening. Everyone is experiencing hardships. Usually in life, you experience hardships alone. Like when my sister died, I think my parents, their world came to an end, but everybody else around them was living their lives. So they felt very much alone, I think, and that's one of the tough things in life. So at least during this thing, we're all going through this experience together and experiencing hardships. And I think this whole thing, the coronavirus pandemic, can have a positive outcome. It can. The human race needs is to make more spiritual effort. The human race has made tremendous advancements in science and technology, all these wonderful innovations that have made life better. But I think actually the human character has deteriorated. And so that's why we have all these problems, like with war and so forth. Mental illness, crime, various problems, divorce, all these different problems that people are having, and suffering and going through hard times. But so there's this, I think, a tremendous need for human beings to improve their character. And I think if that happens, if the large numbers of people improve their character, then all these problems will really sort of dissipate. We'll be able to solve political problems that we have if everyone improves their character. We'll be able to solve but without that, then all these problems just go on forever. And we're always blaming, and there's war, and it's just terrible. That's why Jesus Christ's message of forgive them, forgiveness, is such an important spiritual concept. It's so important. So that's what I feel, that the world things will get better for the world if people improve their care, and that can happen, and that will happen but it comes back to the individual, and the individual making spiritual effort, finding a spiritual path and following that path. A lot of people look to politics, and government has its role, and we all have our role to play in the political process. The thing is, democracy is based on, I think, is a deep concept. It's based on respect, and it's a spiritual concept, and that respect is based on seeing everyone as children of God. But without spirituality, then people don't respect each other, and then democracy, it's hard for it to function. Maybe democracy dies. The founding fathers of the United States, when they created American democracy, one of the things they believed strongly was that the United States would succeed or fail based on the character of the American people. And so now we have the crying need. We need to improve our character, and we're all to blame, but we all can be part of the solution by improving ourselves. And it takes time. we often look at we're impatient. We need to be patient and find a spiritual path and get on it and work at it day after day. And then our lives will get better. And then everything will we can all get along with each other. We can have world peace. And we can have world peace. And the end of war, if people make strong spiritual effort. But as it stands now, we have war. The problems of war are caused by, problems in human character and human beings' spiritual poverty. So I want to mention 5 books in Self-Realization Fellowship. Autobiography of a Yogi is one. It's where Paramahansa Yogananda told his life story and his life and growing up and him finding his guru and coming to the United States and establishing Self-Realization Fellowship. Another book by Paramahansa Yogananda, Man's Eternal Quest. Those are his various teachings. Another one is Scientific Healing Affirmations, also by Paramahansa Yogananda. Where There Is Light, also by Guruji Yogananda, and that's a nice book because it has these short passages. And one more is Finding the Joy Within You by Sri Dayamata, who was actually the former president of Self-Realization Fellowship. And there are many other books in SRF, and the website is www.yogananda-srf.org. Yogananda, YOGANANDA-SRF.org. And actually there are lessons that they have that teach how to meditate and so forth. And so, anyway, so that's the story. That's the story of our topic today, which mostly my own history. And actually, if you study the other thing in history, you study the lives of, I think, the great heroes in history are the saints. Jesus Christ and Bhagavan Krishna and St. Francis of Assisi, Padre Pio, and the 20th century Mother Teresa, and many more. And so these are the Lord Buddha. These are the saints. So these are the wonderful heroes, I think, in history. So that concludes today's presentation. You might consider checking out our website, Adventures in History, with Peter J. Ray at peterjray.com. So far, we've made 633 history videos in 7 areas: world history, American history, book reviews, poetic tours, Cleveland baseball, family history, and autobiography. You also might there's a donate button. You might consider making a donation so we can continue making these videos. You also might consider checking out our podcast, Adventures in History. If you live in Metro Manila, Philippines, and are looking for a high school, you might consider Receleste Educational Center. Receleste is located in San Juan, Metro Manila, and at Receleste we specialize in helping young people who have had difficulty in the larger traditional high schools. And the website is receleste.education, RESALEST. Thanks so much for watching. I really appreciate it. God bless you. Take care. And I'll see you next time.